George's on Vista is the local bistro at Fraser Rise in Caroline Springs, situated at the George Cross Soccer Club at City Vista Reserve. With the current COVID-19 pandemic, we've adjusted our menu and our business times. Bistro dining is back with 2 dining sessions Monday to Saturday between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Numbers are limited, so bookings are essential on 7021 0555. Head to georgesonvista.com.au to check out the menu and the dining times. We're also doing takeaway 5 nights a week, Monday to Friday. You can order your meal, kids' meals, or your favourite snack meals via email. info@georgesonvista.com.au or phone your order through on the night between 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on 7021 0555. Or better still, just rock up on the night and place your order. Visit georgesonvista.com.au to see the dine-in and takeaway menus and for business hours. Get behind local business and dine in or order your next takeaway dinner from George's on Vista, 46 City Vista Court, Fraser Rise, in the heart of Caroline Springs.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to you wherever you may be tuning in to the Football Out West show. It's episode 30 and it's going to be a massive episode. My name is Tonchi Prusak. Joining me here as he does week in, week out, my co-host Craig Filer. Craig, how are you?
Very well, Tonch. Although, I've been a little bit sidelined the last 2 days. I took myself for the old coronavirus test on Tuesday afternoon after feeling quite poorly for a 24 hours. So I did the decent thing and took myself off to Werribee Plaza and turned up and was told it was going to be a 4.5 hour wait. So turned around and came back home and went to the doctors and had it done in 15 mintle. So,
and did you get the test result back?
No, still self-isolating. It's supposed to be today. Hopefully no tomorrow now. So, just doing the right thing and making sure that it's done properly.
Well, thankfully, it's not contagious over the TV screens because otherwise we'd all be in trouble, wouldn't we? You'd be spreading a lot of your love. But I reckon, mate, the reality is you just wanted a couple of hours away from the missus and you just said to her,
tell you what, I've had the best 2 nights sleep I've ever had in a spare room.
Or maybe it was actually her choice. There you go. Mate, it's a massive show tonight. We've got a huge show. And I tell you what, tonight, I mean, apart from the show itself, and we'll talk a little bit about the show itself, but geez, we got a big one overnight. There's going to be a few bleary eyes, I think, in the morning, isn't there? But tell us, mate. Firstly, what is going on as far as tonight's show? Let's talk about that.
Well, tonight we've been very lucky to get the executive manager of the football operations at Football Victoria, Mr. Will Hastie. Will's well known around the football traps, having played in the old NSL, has worked at a local football club as a club administrator, and he'll be joining us in about 10 minutes' time, and he'll be coming on air to answer some questions around the whole situation regarding the season, what it looks like, how it's going to affect your club. So if you've got any questions for Will, please put them up in the chat on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll do our very best to get to them. We're not going to get to all of them, but we'll try and get to as many as we can. And hopefully, by the end of the evening, you'll have a better understanding of, I suppose, what's going on behind the doors of Football Victoria in terms of trying to get a season up and running for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there has been a lot of questions, a lot of criticism, a lot of praise, maybe not a lot of praise about Football Victoria. But look, hats off to the organisation. We had Peter Philopoulos come on about 5-6 weeks ago or thereabouts. We've got Will Hastie, the executive manager of football operations, coming on a little later on. He'll be on in about 10 minutes' time. So a lot of questions will be answered, or we certainly hope will be answered. So tonight's show, for the first time in Football Out West history, it is being simulcast now on two separate Facebook pages, obviously on our Football Out West News Facebook page, but also it is now being simulcast on our sister program, or our sister page, the Geelong Region Soccer Show, Soccer News, I should say. So a big cheerio to all the folk down the Princess Highway. Put your questions in the comments section. We will get all those questions. We would love to hear, as many questions as you possibly can. We can't obviously get through all of them, but we certainly are recommending as many people to try and get through a lot of questions. Thank you, Craig. We had a heap of people text us before the show with various questions. So we've got, like, what did you say, about 134 questions to get through? Or something like that.
Yeah, we've got a fair few. I'm sure it'll be close to that by the time everybody puts their comments up, Donch. Yeah,
no, it should be good. I'm really, really looking forward to that. Now, before we go any further, we've got obviously we've got a lot of news to get through, and Craig's getting himself all ready in the news desk, so we might shoot straight over there. But before we do that, a big cheerio to all the folk down at Georgie's on Vista, George Cross Football Club, our major sponsor. They are all gathered down there at the bistro. 20 of them, thereabouts. And they're watching us on the big screen. So big cheerio to all the folk down there at Fraser Rise.
Yeah, good evening, guys.
The news desk. Craig, over to you.
Okay, Ton. So I suppose we'll start with probably the big news that's going to happen in about 7 hours' time from now. We should have a bit of good news, hopefully, from UEFA or FIFA rather, regarding the World Cup 2023 bid. So we'll find out, like I said, in less than 7 hours whether Australia and New Zealand have been successful in the bid to host the 2023 World Cup bid. As we all know, we're just up against Colombia, and we say we're just up against Colombia, but news on the street is that there may be a bit of a late fight from Colombia with a number of spaces or number of votes still up for had. So it'll be really interesting over the next few hours what happens, and fingers crossed for everybody in Australian football that we can pull this off, and the Women's World Cup 2023 will be on our shores very soon.
It is being dubbed Decision Day, and straight after our show finishes tonight, hop over to the Football Victoria Facebook page, because I think Tara Rushton is hosting a mammoth pre-decision program, Decision Day countdown show. So that'll be going from 8:30 onwards or thereabouts, whatever. And 2 a.m. Australian time is when the decision is being made. It's on FIFA.com. To be honest, I'm not going to get too excited because we've done this in the past. We've said we're a shoo-in, and the world politics that is football sometimes throws us a spanner, and I hope that is not the case tonight. I'm proudly wearing my Australia tracksuit, so fingers crossed. There's 800,000 plus people that have signed on the as12023.com website to show their support. It's great to see. Look, I tell you what, mate, I was once again, just prior to the show, going through the bid process and looking, everything, the stadiums, the cities that it's all going to be. And I read the bid report, but it just dawned on me again that bar the York Park venue in Launceston, all the others are rectangular stadiums. And I'm rapt about that. I really, really am. We don't need the oval stadiums. We don't need those AFL/cricket stadiums. The fact that we're using rectangular stadiums, for that simple reason, I hope Australia and New Zealand get the hosting rights. But Craig, what do you think we'll do in 2023, by 2023, if Australia gets the hosting rights, as far as not just the women's game, but football in general? What do you think it will do for our sport in this country?
Look, I think we all know that there's a hell of a lot of work to be done in football in Australia. Today, next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. But having the World Cup, the best of how many 36 teams is it?
Yeah, 32. It'll be
in the
first time
world
in
on our doorstep.
32.
Can only be 32. Sorry, yeah. So it can only be good for Australian football in general, men's, women's, boys, girls, whatever that looks like. So I think it'll be a massive achievement if we can get it on our shores, and it'll certainly help the progress that football needs to be had over here, as we've been speaking for the last number of weeks on it. So let's keep our fingers crossed. It's only less than 7 hours now, and we will know the decision, and then we can either start celebrating or be crying in our wheat picks in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah, that's the FIFA Women's World Cup bid. Like I said, a lot happening. That's at 2 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to log on to FIFA.com if you're a night owl wanting to be up till late. And there's another reason to stay up late tonight, isn't there, Craig? Let's turn our attention to the old dart, the English Premier League. What's going on over there?
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's another huge night for football. Certainly in the UK with Manchester City taking on Chelsea, so second against fourth. Remember, Chelsea are still looking to cement their place in the Champions League for next season. But a big win for them tonight against Manchester City, who have in their 2 games have been unbelievable, by the way. But if Chelsea do go to Man City and pull off a result tonight, Liverpool become the champions, or the EPL champions, after a few years wait. I think 30 years. So it's well overdue, and I believe that unless you're an absolutely avid Manchester United fan, in fact, we'll ask Will Hastie when he comes on what he thinks of it, because I believe he's a Manchester United fan, but we won't hold that against him. But it'll be great to see Liverpool win. I'm not a Liverpool fan, but they've been outstanding this season and last season, to be fair, and they fully deserve to pick up that title after a long wait.
Well, I'm kind of, even though I'm a very, very passionate Liverpool supporter, I would actually like Man City to win to keep the race alive, because when is it? I think on the weekend afterwards, on this Friday or the Friday next Friday, is it Friday the 3rd of July? Liverpool come up against Man City away. So that would be if it came down to that, and Liverpool had to draw a win, and they ended up drawing or winning that game, geez, that would be fantastic against the actual competitors. But either way, it's I think it's a shoo-in. I think Liverpool will easily cross the line. But that's at 5:15. Is that right, Craig? I think tomorrow's game is at 5:15 a.m. Chelsea versus Man City.
5:15 tomorrow morning. Yeah.
5:15 a.m. Yep.
Yeah, so up early to watch the World Cup bid, and then stay awake with some coffee and watch the Man City Chelsea game. So a big night of football for everybody.
Yeah, Southampton taking on Arsenal at 3:00, and Burnley taking on Watford also at 3:00. And then, as Craig mentioned, the big game, Chelsea versus Man City at 5:15. But the ladders at the moment looking Liverpool up the top, 31 games played, 86 points. Man City a game in hand there on 63 points. Leicester City, 31 games played, 55 points. Chelsea, 1 game less on 30, 51 points. That's the top 4. So, some interesting movements happening at the top of the English Premier League, no doubt. What else have we got? Well, we've got the return dates that Football Victoria have announced. Okay, shall we go through some of those?
Yeah, look, I think let's go through them, but we won't go into them too much, because of course we've got our special guest from the Football Federation on the show this evening, which we're going to talk about. But effectively, full contact in training and matches, including friendlies, can restart effective immediately for under 18s only. That's competitive matches, spectators in groups of up to 10, and we'll touch on that a little bit with Will shortly to get a perspective of what that looks like in terms of the spectators. But it also means that club rooms, changing rooms, and the shower facilities are also to reopen this weekend. So looks as if we're getting some back to some kind of normality, Tonch, and there's a number of questions already coming up about the season and what it looks like. So just be patient, guys. We've got a lot of questions to get through this evening, and I know everybody's champing at the bit to find out what's happening. And rest assured, we'll do our very best to get the answers to you by the end of the show, so you can go away a little bit more happy, knowing that you've heard it right from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, there you go. On the screen, we've got the competition season dates. The resumption of football remains subject to any future change in restriction levels required by state or federal government. And obviously with what is happening at the moment, there's a little bit of turmoil in the northwestern suburbs. So anything is possible there. But we'll quickly recap NPL Junior Boys for the weekend of the 4th and the 5th of July with a planned double header. The girls follow a week later, as do the Community Club Juniors and the Mini Roos on the weekend of the 11th and the 12th July. And then the seniors, Craig, for both the NPL seniors, the Metropolitans, Masters, the State League seniors, and the VPLW as well. That's kicking off on the 25th and 26th of July. We hope that's the plan at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's again, we'll touch on it with Will shortly, but obviously there's been some outbreaks in the last few days. But I'm sure Will will bring us up to speed and how it all works from a football Victoria perspective, because we all jump up and down and we all want answers now. But as we've said right along, they are in the hands of people in higher positions than themselves. So we'll hear what Will has to say on that as we're going through the show. Yeah,
absolutely. Now we're very, very close to calling upon our guest for tonight. But just a reminder, you can now tune into one of 3 weekly podcasts. Monday nights from 7 p.m. now, the Geelong Region Soccer Show. Thursday nights, Football Out West Show at 7 p.m. And Sunday nights, the Football Fan Zone, also at 7 p.m. It is our new talk show program, Craig. But also, once the season starts, mate, we're tipping that's going to be our biggest show, isn't it? Because we believe that on that show, that is when people will be ringing us up and telling us the scores and all of that kind of stuff. So Sunday night, 7 p.m. is going to be bigger than The Voice.
Yeah, look, I think it's it will be. At the moment the numbers are sort of the numbers are dropping off slightly through the evening because of people training now. So people are out are doing their training sessions, but we're still getting on average well over 2,000 views a week of the show. So people are going back and listening. Sunday night, was it Sunday or Thursday? I think it was Sunday night. I know it was last Thursday, wasn't it, where we had a spike at around 8:15, where I think we went up to something like 150. I think it was 152 views at that point, viewers online on the platform at that time. So, look, we believe that the Sunday night show will be a bigger one, talking about the results from the weekend. Hopefully, we'll get some of the public sending in little videos and clips of games so we can play them up on the screen as well. But we think Sunday night might be a bit of a special show for us. Yes, you're right,
just a note on that last week's program when we had we had Harry Bingham and we had Drew Sherman on. It was a phenomenal show. It really, really was. It was our #1 rating show or episode on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and rated #8 on our Facebook, of our Facebook pages. And that's all of the programs so far in 2020. So it was very, very popular. Lots of people tuned in, and we had some really interesting topics that we discussed there. But speaking of interesting topics, mate, we've got some very interesting topics happening tonight as well.
We have, yeah, and it was a great show last week, and Harry and Drew were superb guests. It's always interesting to get two perspectives of football, one from a very experienced campaigner in Harry that's been around the blocks to the new kid on the block, shall we say, in Drew's only been in Australia for a number of years, but has coached at a number of pro clubs in the UK, including Southampton. So different levels of coaching, but very, very good insight into the day-to-day coaching philosophies of both guests last week. But this evening we've got a great guest, and really excited to get him on tonight, actually, because I think he may be able to quell some of the questions and problems that the football in general public are crying out for to be answered this evening. So, as we said, we'll do our very best to answer as many as we can. But in the meantime, we welcome Will Hastie to the show.
George's on Vista is the local bistro at Fraser Rise in Caroline Springs, situated at the George Cross Soccer Club at City Vista Reserve. With the current COVID-19 pandemic, we've adjusted our menu and our business times. Bistro dining is back with 2 dining sessions Monday to Saturday between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Numbers are limited, so bookings are essential on 7021 0555. Head to georgesonvista.com.au to check out the menu and the dining times. We're also doing takeaway 5 nights a week, Monday to Friday. You can order your meal, kids' meals, or your favourite snack meals via email. info@georgesonvista.com.au or phone your order through on the night between 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on 7021 0555. Or better still, just rock up on the night and place your order. Visit georgesonvista.com.au to see the dine-in and takeaway menus and for business hours. Get behind local business and dine in or order your next takeaway dinner from George's on Vista, 46 City Vista Court, Fraser Rise, in the heart of Caroline Springs.
Welcome back to the Football Out West show. It's going to be a huge show tonight, and looking forward to a very important guest from Football Victoria joining us tonight. Now, Craig, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. We seem to lose you for a second, but
you can hear me, but you can't see me.
No, can't. We can hear you, but we can't see you. Now, what we want?
Okay, we'll get Will on, and I'll sort myself out in the back end. And excuse the pun, but I'll sort myself out and get myself back on screen as quick as we can.
Excellent. Well,
but in the meantime, we welcome Will Hastie to the show, looking very dapper there in his suit. He's obviously off for a date later on, and good luck with that, Will, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, no, not at all, Craig. Hi, Tonchi. Hi, Craig, and hi to the Victorian football community. It's a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. Well, it's great to have you on board. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule. It must be absolutely crazy at the moment. And while Craig sorts himself out, we'll get started straight away, because we have got a lot of questions, and I'm sure the punters out there will be keen to get on board as well. So make sure you do put your questions in the comment section next to us, and keep it civil, please. We do not want any swearing or anything like that. But mate, first of all, COVID-19 has been a situation that really nobody could have foreseen. That's for sure. We obviously are aware that it has had an effect on every aspect of society, and we continue to see that happening all around us here in Victoria. But how exactly has this impacted football in Victoria, and especially Football Victoria?
Yeah, look, absolutely. It's impacted the world as we've watched it play out on our television screens and on the news updates hourly. And of course, Victorian society and football in Victoria as a result of that have been no different. So, we've been through a whole range of emotions where it was, a lot of sort of shock and unknown at the start of the whole process. A little bit of despair, a bit of concern, and then, a real regrouping about redefining what football means to Victorian society, and really redefining what the contribution we can make to the Victorian community, whether we play football or we don't play football. So in the early phase of this, we turned our attention to the great tapestry that exists inside Victorian football clubs, the multiculturalism that it represents, and the difference that those communities can make at a time like this to support those most in need, whether you're playing football or not. We all know that our football clubs are important community institutions that do so much good to make everybody's lives better, and these are institutions that some of the support can be delivered through. And I'm excited to say that we've got some return to play dates, which is just a wonderful outcome at the end of it all, which, obviously we still hope that can occur, but notwithstanding that, it really helped us clarify just how important Victorian football clubs are to the society of our community.
Well, I guess for a lot of people were saying it was an opportunity to get back to basics, to enjoy the simple things, especially during the lockdown times, and I guess to learn to not take things for granted that we normally do. What's the feedback been like at FE headquarters, particularly through maybe the club ambassadors who are dealing with a lot of the clubs, but even your own interactions with the clubs? How the clubs, the club administrators, how are they treating this period and our sport in general? Are they frustrated and angry that we can't get back to playing, or are they really, really starting to, I guess, treasure that what we haven't got at the moment, and that is football?
Yeah, just like everybody else in society, you get the full gamut. Some people have enjoyed the break, albeit that it was forced on them. Others are desperate to get back as quickly as possible. So from Football Victoria's point of view, and of course, Tonchi, you know better than anyone the important role that the club ambassador plays. Our staff have been through the difficulty that a lot of Victorian employees have been through. We essentially all on JobKeeper at one point there. We managed to keep our club ambassadors going because they're an important conduit between the organisation and the clubs. And I'm pleased to say that in June, the competitions and the football operations team were able to get back into their roles full time. But there are many in our organisation that are still in the partial employment phase, supported through JobKeeper, like a lot of Victorians. So our first priority was to ensure a connection with the football community through the clubs, which was the role of our club ambassadors, or absolutely is the role of our club ambassadors. And those first 2 months of a restricted skeleton staff challenged us just to stay in touch with how everybody was feeling and how best to take it forward. I have to say, and we're so incredibly proud of our staff. Their commitment to their clubs and to the football community over this time has, well and truly exceeded, anything that you could have hoped for, and it's put us in just a fantastic position. I think that if we get the opportunity to play, which we're all expecting to do, we'll be ready to take that opportunity. And I think you guys will know that. We're probably a little bit ahead. We hear some local AFL competitions have already cancelled seasons, for example, and we were determined to not do that. We were determined to give ourselves every chance to be ready to go if we had that opportunity. And look, I'm really pleased to say that as it stands right now, most clubs have all committed to playing, and I'm sure that question will come up a little bit later. We're in a position where we're close to re-augmenting our competition structures and our fixturing, and within the next week, I think we'll be able to give some real clarity to the football community about what that's going to look like going forward.
Craig, you back with us?
I am. It's the usual Thursday night internet ghosts that I have. It seems to happen every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock. It goes bonkers. So hopefully you can hear me okay.
Point Cook's a real black spot, isn't it? Point Cook is just a black spot. But mate,
I thought I was straight into the co-host chair, mate. What's got a bit excited there?
Do you like his laugh?
So another question. You are?
Go on, Craig. There's a bit of a lag.
Can you hear me okay, guys? Yes?
Yeah.
There's a lag, is there?
Got you, mate.
Yeah.
No, let me come off the camera a second, just see if you can hear me that way.
He's gone. He's gone again. All right. Look, we'll ask the next question. Looks like he's passing the baton on to me. Will, look through. We've mentioned some of the difficulties that Football Victoria has had. Obviously, some of the staff having to be put on JobKeeper and their hours cut, and obviously that has been one of the issues. The lack of resources, I guess, that the head governing body has had. But tell us what has been some of the other big challenges that Football Victoria has faced behind closed doors that we, the public, wouldn't be aware of.
Oh, Tonji, the uncertainty is the hardest part. When you're trying to run a football competition, you need certainty of dates. You need certainty that people are committing to play, and to plan a season out. As you know, our calendar is done at least 14 months in advance. I mean, we're working on next year's calendar, not this year's calendar. So essentially all of our fixturing work, all of our competition organisation work for 2020 was completely done. And then the pandemic hits and we're back redoing all of that work. So, the difficulty for us was really to understand where our clubs were at and just understand what participants, coaches, volunteers, referees, where they were at in terms of their commitment to wanting to play football this year. So there's been an incredible amount of engagement that's gone on in the evening. Lots of video conferencing with clubs, lots of feedback gathered. And I think when we took a deep breath as an executive management team, we sat down and said, we need to work through a set of governing principles about how we're going to take this going forward, so that we can be really clear with everybody about what our decision making looks like. And I think when we released those principles, they're on our website right now. I think that started just to take a little bit of the pressure out of what the football community was feeling. And number one of those principles is we will not do anything that is not safe and that the government does not let us do, right? So we will take all government advice at all times, and we will make sure that whatever return to football looks like is consistent with the advice of the government and the chief health officer. And then as we started to work through those principles, everybody will see now that some of the football competition things that we thought was reasonable to do for 2020 was we took the pressure off on relegation. So at all senior tiers of football, we said there'll be no relegation this year. And, being a football person, I know that the pressure to stay at that tier of the football hierarchy across male and female football is something that weighs heavily on volunteer shoulders. And the minute you take that pressure off, that helped a little. If you're an ambitious club, you can still seek promotion through competition. And of course, if it was all too difficult, one of our principles was we understood if your club just needed to step out for a year and have a pause, and we'll see you in 2021.
I guess that's where you're trying to appease everyone as a governing body, and you represent 350 plus clubs, but we all know it's really impossible to do that. But
That's right.
Has there been some sort of a strategy? Like we did see the NPL clubs, in a sense, were not targeted, but they were addressed first with the let's call it the rescue package or the rebate, which a lot of people didn't read properly, and then following that, the state league clubs, the community clubs. As you've been going along the process, has there been things that you've kind of picked along the way, whether it be yourself, the football ops department, or the media department, or the people and culture department, saying, yeah, maybe we could have done it a little bit better, but you live and learn. We are in unprecedented times after all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you learn something every day in a pandemic like this, and I do think the most important thing is to make decisions, though. If you pander or if you delay a little bit on not making decisions, then the whole thing can get away from you. So some good, strong early decisions are important to keep the momentum moving, and to get the football community back playing as quickly as we possibly can, as quickly as the government will allow us. So I mean, that was an interesting moment when, the so-called MPL rescue package was leaked online. There's not a lot you can do about when that happens. There were sort of confidential discussions that were going on at the time, but we all know football being football, that these things get out, and it would be better if you can make that announcement all at once, so that all tiers of football, MPL, community, get the same announcement at the same time, and the football community can see the context of that. I think it's forgotten also that we were also talking to our refereeing community through that time, and they've been magnificent as well. And there's a 25% deduction at the NPL level on their game day match fee, which is their contribution to what's going on at the moment.
Uh-huh.
And I will note that comes off if we can get more than 300 crowds into stadiums, which of course is the biggest challenge economically for a lot of clubs, not just NPL clubs. Is that not just the gate, obviously, but the game, the canteen, the fundraising, and the other things that get generated around our community football clubs. So you're right, trying to find a solution for all tiers of football, for all economic situations, and for all the different opinions about whether football should or shouldn't be played at this time is a challenge, and that's why we wrote the principles, just to let everybody know that it's an unusual year. Let's hope it's a year that we never experience again, and whatever your view is out there on it, we totally understand it, and we're here to support whatever engagement you want with football this year.
Craig, you're back. You've joined us.
Yes, I'm back. So hopefully you can hear me okay now, guys. And it's great to hear what you just said then about some of the things that's going on. So just from my point of view, and let's be frank here. So the footballing public have been very patient around the return of football. We've all been champing at the bit for a while now. And given other sports have started a few weeks back, yesterday or late yesterday afternoon, the Football Federation gave the clearance for contact training and competition for under 18s to go ahead, as we've just spoken about. So that's great news for as clubs can start to plan for what the season looks like. And with this in mind, is the plan for junior football in the community leagues still to play 18 competitive games, even though we're starting a few weeks later than was scheduled a few weeks back?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard to get to the actual usual community season for us, Craig, is between 16 and 18, depending on league structures and how many teams end up in that league structure. It's around about that number. We think we'll get close to that. I'm pleased to say some people might have seen the announcement that cricket and AFL put out in relation to an extended use of facilities for AFL into the early part of October this year, which was part of what cricket's participation or gesture, I guess, to support the winter sports seasons and give them a little bit more time on their facilities. We'll be announcing something similar, which will get us into that early October window, and that will enable us to play sort of 4 to 6 more weeks longer than we would normally have played a community football season. Most community football clubs will know that they hand their keys over for the summer sports on the 1st of September, traditionally, and that gives councils a month to prepare the grounds for cricket going into October. And there's been a lot of work done by our Senior Executive Manager, Business Services, Matt Green, and his engagement with the Department of Sport Rec, Cricket Victoria and local government in that space. So we're hopeful early next week of releasing the details of that, which will help us get a little bit longer on the season than we otherwise would from a facility point of view.
Yeah.
Now,
just touch on that, and someone's make a point. George Kontakikis here has basically said that the Football Federation have given the go-ahead, but the councils have not, or certain councils maybe not yet. What's the plans for that with Football Federation and the local councils? I'm
not aware of any local council not saying contact training's okay, but I'm happy to check that out for George. I can see George's comment there online. I mean, there's some differences in local government and how they want their clubs to access facilities. There's no doubt about that. Our direction's coming from the Department of Sport and Rec, and we understand, and Tonchi knows this as a former club ambassador, that the subtleties around the local municipalities and how access is enabled to local venues, it can differ. And even with these recent outbreaks, I think we'd expect to see some differences around the game day facility access, depending on how that plays out. I think they call that the new COVID normal. Now it might be a term we have to get used to.
Yeah. That's an interesting point that George makes. And George, if you can maybe in the comments section just put which council you're talking about. I am aware of certain councils that have their own facilities and clubs run their, for example, multi-purpose or leisure time facilities, for example, where they are actually saying change rooms at the moment are still off limits. Doesn't mean that they can't use particular facilities, but toilet blocks and I guess councils have got the right to say that, because it comes back down to then their own cleaning and their own maintenance, and whether they've got the capacity to cover for clubs, and especially if there are multiple teams and clubs using that facility. But George, if you can let us know, that would be greatly appreciated. Even if you wanted to just PM us, private message us for the younger folk out there. But back to you, Will. What about the junior boys NPL? We've talked about the community side of things, but the junior boys, I guess, they've already started their qualifying phase. Will they play a full season of 22 fixtures plus the 4 remaining qualifying rounds, which is slated to start the 4th of July?
Yeah, it's one of the most exciting parts of it, getting the junior girls and the junior boys NPL back on. Both of them got their season started, and unfortunately the kids had to pause because of the pandemic. So we can't wait to get them both back on. Where we were at with the junior boys was there was 4 more rounds to go until the end of the qualification phase. As competition administrators, we were super excited to get to the end of that phase and then redraw the competition into what you might call best versus best, like versus like principles in that second phase. And I think the games at all phases of that second tier are going to be wonderful to watch, because I just love going to see a competitive football match. And I think, what we envisage seeing in that second phase is going to be super exciting. We spoke to the NPL junior boys clubs, I think it was last Saturday week, and we contemplated 2 options for the second phase. One was the full 22 games. To play the full 22 games, I think it's you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out. We'd have to get a couple of double-header weekends off, or we'd end up playing all the way to Christmas. So, you'd have to cram a little bit more into a tighter period of time. Or the second option was to play 11 games in the second phase of the season, half the competition into a top 6 and a top 8, before playing another 5 games of the top playing each other the second time and the bottom playing each other a second time, which would give you 16 games. So I guess from our point of view, either one of those are not a terrible place to be in. And the 16-game option may mean that the season gets finished just a little bit earlier than what it otherwise would if you played all the way through to the 22 games.
And when will the decision be made on that, Will?
I'd say we'll be right for that early next week, Craig.
Okay. And where do you think it's going to land, given the obviously responses from clubs? Can you give us any sort of indication on that?
It's like anything. There wasn't really a clear preference that came out. I think both have integrity and merit. I think it just sort of comes down to, you'll know, Craig, from being an NPL coach, what happens next year? Will you have enough time to then run trials for the 2021 season? Will you have enough time to have a little bit of a break? And maybe the kids don't potentially need a break because they've been down for about 2.5, 3 months as it is now. But volunteers, coaches, and parents definitely like a break, right? So
But do they need a bit of a bugbear for me? Do we need to trial? Is there not the perfect example this year of it's been an absolutely dog's breakfast from start to finish because of what's happened? Why can't we just say there will be no trials at football clubs next year? The boys that you've got on your cards now will be the same boys as you've got, unless people choose to leave. Then that solves that problem. Do we need to be having trials all the time for football in Australia?
Well, Will, you were a club administrator. You were a technical director for many years. You hold is it a B or A licensed coach? Put your coach's hat on. Put your club administrator's hat on. And that's a great question, Craig. That's a phenomenal question. What do you think of that? Trial, no trial.
I'll try my best.
I don't give you much credit much times, but that one was well deserved. Sorry, over to you, Will.
Look, I'm certainly of the view that I'd rather keep my group together and work with them. I coach because I want to improve talent, and I enjoy out of seeing them improve as a group. The realist in me says that there's always going to be player movement, and there has to be some sort of mechanism that occurs at all tiers of football that let players move between the clubs. But Craig, it is entirely in the hands of the club if you want a trial or not. You can keep the squad that you want together and top it up with some new players, however that turnover may be. But yeah, I've always been of the view that you get just as much joy out of squad player. Let's just, for the sake of numbers, if your best player is number one and your player with the most development opportunities, number 18, I think you get just as much joy out of watching that number 18 player come into your top 10 and try out new positions and try out new formations. And I think the magic of coaching is that your number one, your number two, your number three players have to work out how to make that number 18 player better as well. Their responsibility is as a team, it's to drag their so-called weakest link along, and that's how you become better as a team. Because the following year, that might be your best player and they might be helping you along, right? So we've seen incredible development from the ages of 12, 13, 14, and then, it's a completely different look into your squad when 16, 17, 18 comes along. So I don't particularly feel there's a massive need for trials at all. And I think we were talking about this in our prep this morning, and I think we're going to get ourselves to the point where we can start to report to the football community on KPIs like player movements between clubs at junior levels. And we can start to set ourselves targets on how we would prefer that wasn't too high. That players, I certainly only had one junior club when I was a kid. I identify with Croydon City Football Club to this day. I had a strong bond with that club. And unless it's for genuine reasons, I actually don't believe it's that good if a kid at the age of 16's had 4 different junior clubs. They haven't been able to form a bond with a club, and it hasn't been their special place that they can always remember and go back to as the place that developed them, started them, and their football dreams commenced with. So that'd be my view.
Good. Thank you for that. Yep. Craig, over to you.
Before we touch on senior football, just one thing I want to add on to the NPL side of things, just some clarity around spectators, Will, because I think, with the games about to start kicking off and there will be friendlies being played this weekend, just so everybody's clear, can you clarify to us the 10 spectator rule? Is it 10 spectators only, or is it groups of 10 spread out around the ground? And how many can you have in watching a game in that situation, or is it 10?
Yeah, we're seeking clarity on this, Craig, from the department right now. As it reads right now, it's groups of 10, but as many groups of 10 in the venue as are appropriately socially distanced, right? So technically, I guess that means that if provided you're socially distanced and there's enough space between all the groups of 10, then however big the venue is, you can have more than 10 people in the venue. I think it's the Department of Sport Rec have done a really good job of taking the Premier and the Chief Medical Officer's latest announcements and then turning that into sporting vernacular on the realities of how that plays out when people are in organised community sporting venues, noting that many of our games are played on open community fields, of which the local volunteers that run the clubs don't necessarily have any ability to restrict what's going on at those community fields. A lot of our games are played on fields where you can just rock up and anyone can go and watch a game, right? So we're working with them at the moment to get a little bit more clarity on that. But certainly the way it reads at the moment is you're not in breach if you're in groups of 10 and they are appropriately socially distanced from other groups of 10, which is really just what you would see as you walk down to your local park at the moment. One of the great things of the pandemic is the amount of people that are re-engaging with their parks and riding bikes, and kids that are playing. And you can see plenty of groups of 10 down at your local community football ground, but there's more than 10 people there, if that makes sense. So this is one of the challenges of the pandemic, and the restrictions that get put in place. And we'll certainly be in a better position to communicate that to everyone by the recommencement date, which for the junior boys is Saturday week now, right? So we're working on that one.
Steve Black, you know him well. Craig, he says he's got an interesting question. Does that mean that a group of 10 can be 1.5 meters away from another group of 10? I guess now we're getting into sort of the specifics there, but technically, yes, is that right? But then that group of 10 within that group, they really have to be socially distancing themselves amongst each other. Is that right?
Yeah, look, and that's the technicalities of it, Tonshi. Look, at the end of the day, I think we're getting asked to just be sensible. Take responsibility as a community for the social distancing. And if you've made reasonable efforts to socially distance and done the right thing, I think broadly speaking, everyone's going to be okay. But as a governing body,
the problem, Will, people are frightened. So people are frightened. Clubs will be very, very careful about what they do and what they say, because they don't want the owners to come back on them should anything happen. So I think to get some clarity on it is what needed, and you've done that for us. Thanks very much. But I think there will still be that air of caution from every club, I think, going forward in the new COVID rules.
It's important that clubs stay in touch with our portal on our website and stay in touch with the latest communications that go out. I mean, there's times in the week these things are changing daily, and definitions are changing daily. Obviously, it was disappointing that a few areas went backwards last weekend, but up until that point, we were looking at venues being able to open to, up to 50, up to 100, provided they were appropriately socially distanced.
Yeah.
And that got retracted back on the Sunday. Now, that was announced on Sunday afternoon and caught a lot of Victorian restaurants and venue owners by surprise, and they're still trying to work out what that meant by sort of Wednesday and today. So that's the type of scenario we're in, and we'll do everything we can to be as clear and as consistent with that for the community as possible.
Yeah, and I think Sam Mathias there has just put on the bottom there, clear as mud. I think it's pretty clear. We can have up to as many groups as you want in groups of 10, providing that we're the 1.5 meters away from each other. That's as clear as it can be. So I'm not sure what else you want from that, Sam, but that sounds pretty clear to me, and I stand to be corrected if I'm not correct.
But I guess the onus is also not only on the clubs, but the club members, the fans that turn up. Are they there just to be, difficult, or are they there actually to support their club? And I think majority of the clubs out there would actually say, look, if you're not going to turn up and be cooperative and be here for the club, then what's the point of you even coming there? Doesn't matter if you've been at the club for 20, 30, 40 years. I guess you really have to have the club's best interests at heart if you're going to turn up, and you stick to your rules. I suppose that it just goes without saying, common sense needs to prevail. Is that right?
It is with me.
All right, let's move along to senior football. What's Football Victoria's plan around this? So let's go through from the top to the bottom, so to speak. What's the structure going to look like for each of the following? NPL 1. We've already heard that Bentley Greens are out. Is that right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I can confirm that. And again, we go back to the governing or the guiding principles that we produced at the start of this. We understand that these are challenging times for dedicated club administrators, and I know that the Bentley Greens team will be disappointed that they haven't been able to continue this year for their reasons. But that will mean that 13 teams will recommence the NPL 1 competition, and we will play all the way to the halfway point of that already fixtured competition. So I think that means some teams will play 8 more games, others will play 7 to get to round 13. And then I'm pretty excited to say that it'll be an expanded finals format. It'll go from 6 to 8 teams in a finals format. And for the first time ever, we'll play the equivalent of a UEFA Champions League final phase to our competition. So the quarterfinal phase will be a home and away final. Then, of course, the winners will go to a home and away semi-final before a one-off grand final at a neutral venue. So, I think that's given that the NPL 1 league had started, and given that all clubs were challenged by both the change in the economic situations on game day and the pause in the season for their players and their club communities, I'm really pleased with that outcome.
Something exciting to look forward to. NPL 2 and NPL 3. How is that looking at this stage?
NPL 2 and NPL 3 were, they were really consistent and clear right from the off that they were really keen to play. It was very important for them to have an opportunity at promotion, which we understood, because it gives them something to play for. The protection of relegation, which of course is there for the NPL 1 clubs too, was important for them. And look, we hope that gives teams and clubs a chance to really play with freedom and express themselves without the fear of going down. We'll play one full round in NPL 2, which will be 11 games, and then back to that format of the top half of that competition. The top 6 will split and play each other another 5 times in almost a race for promotion, so to speak. And I'm sure there'll be an exciting sort of last 5 rounds there. And the bottom half will play against each other the other 5 rounds. And of course, they'll be the reverse fixtures from the ones they played in the first half, so you get a fair home and away.
Ryan,
how many can be for promotion from NPL 2 and 3? So how many from NPL 2 into NPL 1 for next season? So does that mean then that next season's NPL is obviously going to be 1 or 2 teams bigger?
Yeah, that's right. So it'll be 2 up and a 16-team NPL 1 in 2021.
Okay.
Now, Ryan Baldacchino's got a good question. He says, are Bentley Greens out of all age groups? They are included in the 18s fixtures. So is it just the seniors that are pulled out, or is it across the board?
I'm pleased to say their 20s and 18s will participate, and that's totally fine with us. We're fine with that.
So will the under-20s...
Okay, moving along to the state league.
Tonch, will the under-20s be playing in the NPL, or will they be playing in their under-20s league?
No, they'll play NPL under-20s.
Okay, so moving along to the state leagues, Will, the state league competition, how is that looking? How many teams at the moment have pulled out? And is it looking feasible that we're going to have the same divisions as we did in 2019?
There's still a little bit of work to do in that space, Tonchi, but I'm pleased to say that very few teams have chosen to pause and take a break. That's probably the biggest piece of work that my football operations team have had to get through, which was the re-engagement with all the clubs, the assessment of their access to their facilities, the assessment of their accredited and of lights, with the possibility of, we started to consider the possibility of a midweek fixture here and there for the state leagues. And I'm pleased to say that both across senior women and senior men, very few teams have let us know that they won't be playing, which I'm pretty confident that it'll mean that largely the competition structures as announced will stay intact, and we won't have to contemplate what we thought we may have to do, which might have been putting 2 divisions together to to sort of play a recommenced football competition. So at this stage, it's looking like those league structures will remain intact.
And with no relegation, will it still mean that only 2 teams get promoted, so that next year the competition will have 14 teams
There's still
going
promotion in
all the way
play.
through?
There is a difference that when we start to get down to your state 3, state 4, state 5 playoffs and
obviously,
level. So we'll be clear again by early next week how many places are available for promotion and what that means, and also season length. We've contemplated a couple of season length with state league clubs, and we'll take the state league clubs' feedback on what they think they can commit to there. Our guiding principle has said that if every team plays each other once, we'll consider that a bona fide season in 2020. And I think that's the fairest way to do it, given the pandemic that we're in at the moment. At a minimum. We've enjoyed getting the sort of top half, bottom half split happening, which is giving some leagues, another 5 games and probably playing with that little bit of, additional excitement as the culmination of the season comes in the top half, bottom half split. But we understand that might not be possible for all tiers.
What about the Doherty Cup? Is that still on? Because that had got to round 3, I think it was, by the time that had the lockdown came into effect. So what's the plans with the Knockout Cup?
Planning on both going ahead, the Nike Cup and the Doherty Cup. We're excited about that. It's the oldest running cup comp in the country, the Doherty Cup, and we'll do everything we can to make sure it gets played in 2020. And the Nike Cup, we started a relationship with Nike last year, and it was just a phenomenal tournament last year, which gave our female players a tremendous experience. And we're pleased that we can at the moment, the way the calendar's looking, we can put that on again, and we certainly want that to go ahead.
That's great.
Now, Sam Matthias is saying promotion, avoiding a question. We've actually answered that question. It's a replay after the show's finished. You can go back and listen to it word for word, Sam. But it has actually been addressed. So
onto you.
There will be promotion for next season, or this season rather. But the decision on what the structure looks like in terms of the leagues will be announced next week. So if you still don't understand me, please, as Tonchi said, rewatch the show afterwards for the answer from Will.
Okay,
so,
Craig.
Another stupid question now. Then, when's the fixtures out?
Good question. We're hopeful for early next week. The State League senior fixtures were done. So, largely speaking, if we can keep those fixtures intact, then the fixture remains, and the first half of the year will be what was already published. And obviously, then all you've got to do is shift back dates, times, and align the schedule with the clubs and what they can accommodate. But so at the senior level, we're hopeful that there's not too much rework there needing to be done. The juniors, community juniors, that is, there's a power of work going on there, and the team are doing an incredible job. That's the biggest job that we have to do every year is the community junior and mini roos fixturing process. It's actually the most complicated. It's the most difficult, and the team will be working around the clock to get that out by the July 12 current recommencement date.
Now, what we might do, if we've been going for a good 45 minutes, we might actually take a little bit of a break just to give everyone an opportunity to maybe go grab a drink or go have a little bit of a break. When we return, we'll continue with this, but don't go away. You are listening to the Football Out West show, and stay with us. We're talking to Will Hastie, Executive Manager of Football Operations at Football Victoria. Don't go away.
Is the local bistro at Fraser Rise in Caroline Springs, situated at the George Cross Soccer Club at City Vista Reserve. With the current COVID-19 pandemic, we've adjusted our menu and our business
Have you got a business and you want to promote your brand to a ready-made audience? Have you got a birthday coming up in the family and would like to send that someone special a special message? Then why not consider a sponsorship on the Football Out West show? With an ever-growing audience right across Melbourne's western suburbs and the surrounding regions of Wyndham, Melton, Geelong, and even as far as Ballarat, your business or that special person in your life could become a household name. More importantly, you will be armed with the knowledge you are being part of a football show that is fast becoming a movement and a catalyst for great change in our wonderful game locally. The revolution is here, and we want you to jump on board and be a part of it. Welcome back to the Football Out West show. You're listening to, we're interviewing a guest from Football Victoria. He just happens to gone off. I think he's gone off to the toilet, maybe Craig. But we're talking with Will Hastie. He's done a runner. He just can't handle all the questions being thrown at him. But no, he's back very, very shortly. He's going to be coming straight away, joining us back on here. Welcome back to Will Hastie. He's that's okay, all good. Like I said, we're talking with Will Hastie. He's the executive manager of football operations, and we were just before the break. We were talking about the fixtures out hopefully early next week. There is a question here from Geelong. Ahmed Idris says local competition fixtures. What about FFV Geelong, Masters, all of those competitions? I assume that they'd be the same as the state league.
Yeah,
fixtures.
absolutely. As you know, Tonch, we fixture Geelong from FV, which is great. So that'll be on the same timeline as we've already discussed.
Okay, so hopefully early next week is the plans. Now, no relegation. I mean, we kind of understand why that was the case, but if so few clubs have withdrawn, why was there no relegation policy included? Was it because it was done at the start of the pandemic, I guess, to entice clubs to play on, or
yeah, I think I touched on it a little bit earlier that for purely football reasons, and if you've been a club volunteer, a club administrator, a member of a committee, one of the great causes of concern for you is relegation from the football hierarchy. And if they're for reasons that you believe are largely out of your control, so pandemic related, which may impact your squad, may impact the economics of your sponsorship, may impact a whole range of things that you weren't expecting to occur. We were getting a lot of feedback that pretty much said, well, it's all a little bit too hard for us this year. And we felt and we know that once we removed the threat or the concern of relegation, it definitely would entice people to commit clubs to playing, and took that pressure out of the unnecessary pressure out of being an administrator and a volunteer at a club, purely from competition results point of view. Obviously, we've all been administrators before. There's plenty of other things that give you pressure and stress at clubs, of course, but if we could take that one away, we thought it'd help.
Okay, cool. Craig?
I think you touched on this, but we'll touch on it again. So do we know how many teams in each league are going to be promoted? So is it going to be, State League 1 into MPL 3? Is that likely to be 1 or 2? And then how does that look down there? I think you've already sort of answered it, but just want to get that.
So we'll announce the state leagues next week. It's more likely to be 3 out of the 2 state league 1s into NPL 3. We've got, unfortunately, Murray pulled out of competition before the pandemic, so there's 11 in NPL 3 right now. 2 from NPL 3 up to NPL 2, and then 2 NPL 2 up to NPL 1 for a 16-team NPL 1 in 2021. And then we'll announce next week what the subsequent promotion numbers would be from the other tiers.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the contact training side of things. So back to the juniors and seniors here. What's the reason why contact training and friendlies can't be started at senior level yet at the juniors that can? Is that purely state government directive, or is that another? Just tell us. Yeah.
We're a bit concerned that the seniors would get hurt, Tonch, so
No, a lot of injuries, I'll tell you.
You were doing really well. Now you've upset everybody in football, in the football world.
The chief medical officer was pretty clear when he announced the return to play guidelines that at this stage they were confident. They were more confident in the 18 and underage level that it was less of a risk for transmission than it was for the adult level, which is why they approved schools to go back essentially. And so they've clearly felt that was consistent with the advice they're receiving more broadly around what kids can do and youth engagement in general, not just youth sport. So they've made a delineation between 18s and under and then 19s and over. And we've simply followed, well, we have to follow that. We have to follow that. And that's what's been signed off by the Department of Education, the Department of Sport and Rec. And it's purely government advice and government driven.
I mean, we know that all state governing bodies, sporting governing bodies, have to not only abide by, but follow the chief medical officer and the state government. That's where they get their directive. But is it frustrating from your point of view? Because we can see it happening that even the experts are getting things wrong. You know, they said the kids can't get infected. Now the kids are getting infected. They said that, you know, this would happen. There'd be no second wave. Now the second wave is happening. And all of these kind of things. So from a football administrator's point of view, and I guess you have to stay as politically correct as you can, but is it frustrating because the goalposts are constantly being changed, as you said, sometimes almost on a daily basis? Hello?
Oh,
have we lost Will?
At least it's not me.
No, we've lost Will. Something just happened all of a sudden.
Yeah, he's there.
Hello? He's there. What we might do is we might just refresh. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we'll just jump on and we'll get one of our ads coming on, and hopefully we'll have Will back. We're going to work on Will trying to get back as quickly as possible. We can definitely hear him. I think he just can't hear us. Have you got a business and you want to promote your brand to a ready-made audience? Household name. Have you got a birthday coming up in the family and would like to send that someone special a special message? Then why not consider a sponsorship on the Football Out West show? With an ever-growing audience right across Melbourne's western suburbs and the surrounding regions of Wyndham, Melton, Geelong, and even as far as Ballarat, your business or that special person in your life could become a household name. More importantly, you will be armed with the knowledge you are being part of a football show that is fast becoming a movement and a catalyst for great change in our wonderful game locally. The revolution is here, and we want you to jump on board and be a part of it. Welcome back to the Football Out West show. Hopefully, Will, can you hear us now? We still can't hear Will. We've just lost audio. I'm not too sure why that's the case. Hello, Will. Craig, you can hear us, can't you?
I can hear you perfect. Yeah, I can see Will tapping around on his phone, but certainly it's not visual. It's an audio.
Okay, we're having problems. Unfortunately, we may have to go to may have to go to another advert. And Craig, maybe if you can try and in the background just try and sort a few things out if you can. Okay, you're listening to the tuning into the Football Out West show. Unfortunately, we are having a few little technical issues, so we apologise. Our main guest tonight, Will Hastie, he's the executive manager of football operations at Football Victoria. Just cannot get him, unfortunately. We will try and we'll he's definitely trying. Craig's now in the background trying to get a hold of Will. Keep your comments coming. Keep your questions coming. We'll try and get through as many as we can. I can certainly understand people getting very frustrated because there are certain things that are not being answered. And let's face it. Let's be honest. I guess the hardest thing here is that we're constantly getting difficulty from the state government because the goalposts are changing on a daily basis, and that makes it a little bit difficult. But looks like we may have Will back. Okay. Hello, gentlemen. Are we back? We've got him back.
Sorry, Tonchi.
All good.
You were about to ask about the government. I was just answering when I thought I was going well when you two were frozen, so it was clearly me.
That's the other way around. Yeah,
just before you go, there's a great comment on the comment section here from Ahmed Idris in down in Geelong. He said, "Must be a communication thing for the Football Federation."
Good one, I agree.
Well, look, guys, I do have to blow my own trumpet here. Often we were called in Geelong Sleepy Hollow, and that we were a little bit behind the scenes. But behind Melbourne and behind Point Cook, it seems that our NBN in little old Lara seems to be doing really well. All jokes aside, back to you, Will. What happens if the government shuts down those suburbs currently defined as cluster areas? And someone had a very, very good comment here. I'll see if I can find that person. Jonathan Clemente. What's the contingency plan if health advice stays as is, certain hot spots to be avoided? What if a team is situated in a hot spot, are forced to lock down and suspend training because of it? Integrity of the league. We're actually seeing that happening now, aren't we, Will?
Yeah, great question, Jonathan. And I think we just got to step through this now. You asked the question right at the start, Tomshi, about how governments have reacted and how that's playing out, and then what that means as a football administrator. I'll say right from the off, I think the Australian government, federally and state and local, have done a phenomenal job with this crisis. I don't think anyone could have seen it coming, and there is no playbook really on how that plays out through every facet of society. So if we were all asked in January, do you think you're going to be asked to be stayed locked up in your house for 2 months for a virus, we would have all laughed and said that'll never happen. And within the space of 2 months, the whole world was sort of in shutdown and it was crisis. So I think that in the main, the reaction from both Australians and the government's been phenomenal. The question that Jonathan has asked is a valid one. And as a competition administrator, no different to what you would have seen with the AFL and what Essendon had to go through in the last week. It's simply that we're going to have to be as imaginative, as creative, and also ask for as much flexibility from football participants as we possibly can. Should there be a situation where a suburb is locked down but every other suburb in Victoria can play football, well, I think everyone would reasonably say we're going to play football and we won't play in the region that we're not allowed to play in because we're going to follow government advice. And then as football administrators, we will do everything we possibly can to make sure that football match gets played. Mm-hmm. And we would ask for flexibility from both clubs and all participants and all parents to see if we can get the game played. Now, if we can't get the game played, well, then there'd have to be a competition mechanism that would determine the result. And usually in football, if you can't get a game played, it's probably a draw, right? Now, we haven't landed on what that means. We haven't landed on whether that's fact or how that'll play out. But they're the types of decisions me and my team are working through at the moment about how we can be as clear as we can possibly be to the football community before the league commences, so that we all know how we're going to handle the unknowns that are ahead of us.
Well, as far as the technical department of Football Victoria, I think news has just come at hand that today the TIDC gala, which was going to be held over the school holidays at Darebin, has now been moved to the Knox Centre because of that very reason. So I guess we have to be very, very good at thinking on our feet. And as a football community, that is going to become the norm, isn't it? Until things normalise. And when will they normalise? Craig, have you got an idea?
With you, I think we all have to be flexible. The fact that we've even got football starting again is a massive plus for everybody in Victoria. So there are going to be situations that come and pop up that nobody was anticipating, and I think we all have to be flexible and honest, and understand that it is something, as you said earlier on. Well, there is no playbook on this. Nobody's done it before, so it's going to be flying by the seat of your pants in most instances. But the biggest thing is we try and get through what we can with the best that we can, and that's all anybody can do. The fact that we've got football being played starting next week at junior level, if you'd look back probably 2 months, you'd have said there's no chance we're playing football this year.
Yeah.
So, let's take our hats off to those that have been involved and got it up and running, and certainly your department will have done a great job of that. So well done. Now, is there a deadline on the season finishing? Given that there are obviously potential further delays, you've touched on it earlier on with the cricket. How far can we? Certainly, community clubs are going to be slightly different to NPL clubs because they've got access to their grounds for 40 odd weeks of the year. But certainly at community level, is there a cut-off date that it has to finish so the cricket can begin the process for their season?
Yeah, the guidance from cricket is the same as what they have provided for AFL, which is somewhere around the first weekend of October for juniors, potentially with a finals game in there. We've got to work through that. And about the 18th of October for seniors, again, potentially with some finals games at the back end of that. Because what that does is obviously if you play finals games, and I'm talking, that's obviously a traditional AFL structure, not necessarily a football state league structure, but it frees up grounds for councils to start to prepare for the cricket season so that they can get going with their season. So with that, they're the sort of zones we're trying to work within. Most of the football administrators, including NPL, they're keen to be done by the end of October, maybe that cup weekend, which is the first weekend of November. We're going to listen to the football community on this, Craig, and let's just sort of be reasonable about it. I think, my view, I'd play 24/7 and just keep going until they tap me on the shoulder to stop. But I understand that that's not necessarily practical and doesn't always work. But, I mean, Victorian football clubs are pretty much 12-month of the year operations in many tiers of football right now anyway. So, we'll ensure that as much football can get played in the time frame that there is and when people want it to be played.
Now, as football administrators, Will, I guess you have to plan for everything. The good outcomes, the bad outcomes as well. And look, given the current situation and the further COVID outbreaks, is Football Victoria considering what other sports have done regrettably and cancel the 2020 season and just start planning for 2021? Is that one of the options? Is that one of the alternatives?
You'd be crazy to say you wouldn't consider it, but it certainly hasn't featured in our planning to date. Our view will be we'll continue to work with the government on getting whatever season up that we can that still holds its integrity, and we've provided the principles of what we think would be the minimum for a season integrity. And if we can play, if the government says we're okay to play and there's willing participants to play, and I should probably add that was another principle that we put in there that, if you don't want to play, we understand. We understand that, that's okay. It's a little bit like if you don't feel like, going out of your house at the moment, going to the supermarket, that's okay. It's all okay at the moment. We understand it. If there are willing participants, if people want to play, if the government says it's safe to play, our position as an executive team, as an organisation, was that it was important that we showed the leadership to give people that opportunity, and at no point did we consider cancelling our season.
Great to hear. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that'll agree with me. I'm sure there are people that won't agree with me, but we need football. And then there's the other element, the mental health side of things, but that's talk for another time, maybe even next week, Craig.
Who's to say, though, Tonch, that in 6 months' time that we're not going to be in the same position as we are now? So let's just get on with football, and we worry about what happens in 2021. In 2021, let's
Absolutely.
first and foremost let's get football up and running. If there was no opportunity to play football, the Football Federation, the government would have come out and said, we're not playing any sport. That's it. We're done. But they haven't. They've come out and said, we want sport to continue. It's a massive part of daily life. So, let's worry about 2021 and what happens next season after we've halfway through this year when the team at Football Federation can start planning. But, like I said, we're up and running. Football's going to happen. And we have to wait and see if anything changes due to further outbreaks. But we can't control that. We can only control what we can control, and at the moment the Federation are controlling everything they can.
Yeah, I think so. I agree.
Correct.
Moving along, Craig.
Yeah, question here from a club, Will, if you don't mind. It's from Surf Coast Football Club, and I'll read it out to you. It's got, at Surf Coast, we have had 30 refund requests fulfilled due to COVID-19. As a club, we have provided a full refund of the club component of the fee, including our own levy that was go towards the $2.1 million club room expansion that we managed to secure through state government. What is the FFE's position on providing a partial refund of Football Federation player registration fee for such players who have not played or in some cases had yet to train at all this season at the time of registering due to the virus?
Yeah, look, that's a good question. We're getting closer to being very clear about that. Our initial position on refunds was that football is just postponed and we expect it to be played, and therefore, we'll play the season. When we get to the point which is early next week, when we can announce what the season looks like, then we're happy to contemplate those players that still choose not to play and not to return to play football for 2020. As I've said, that's fine. We were basically waiting to see that A, we could reconfirm football, B, we can clarify what the season looks like, and then C, if the position is that the players still don't want to play, then that's the time to work through the refund.
Okay. Hopefully that answers that question. Well, let's move along to maybe something that's not connected with COVID-19, but something that I guess a lot of people don't know, maybe an insight into your football operations department. Can you explain to us, Will, the process of how fixtures are done and each club's wishes accommodated? Also explain what happens to the process when clubs pull teams out at the last minute or conversely decide to field an extra team at the last moment.
Thanks, Tonchi. That sounds like a very good question, Tonchi. Very good question.
Sure you'd like that one.
Yeah, this is just, look, and maybe we should do this more often and have much more engagement with clubs and the football community about it. So thanks for the opportunity. Essentially, approximately 40,000 fixtures are generated by our office every year. It's a massive amount. We're the only football federation in the country that does it, actually. A lot of the other states have sub-regional associations that take on their fixturing for them, and as such, it contains the number of fixtures that they do, but we do them mainly all out of our head office. As everybody out there will know, we have a team entry cut-off date. We try to make that approximately 4 to 6 weeks before our season starts dates. And then, to be honest, our team just goes to work, and fundamentally, a lot of the fixturing to this day is still being done on Excel, believe it or not. And so therefore, it's been a sort of highly manual-ish process, even though Excel's not manual, and quite a time-consuming and laboursome process. We've actually partnered with an organisation called Predictive Analytics Group this year, who have been fantastic. They've helped us automate parts of that process, albeit we still have the same, competition management system. We have a different management system for referees and a different management system for registrations through Play Football. So all of those systems are trying to interact to fundamentally produce a fixture that gives every club its preferences, its times, its dates, schedules referees, and basically runs in sync for how every club's game day will run. In short, Tonshi, we get that pretty much right 2 weeks before the season starts.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year, about 300 teams pulled out in the 2 weeks in the lead up to the season, and about 190 came in. So when you get a fixture that comes out in the first 2 or 3 weeks that has 2 buys in it, but they're not the same teams on the bye, and people think that the competitions team have gone mad because they've given 2 teams in one round a bye. The only reason that's occurring is because teams have pulled out earlier in that week, and we've just been unable to recalibrate that fixture to sync it up so that all teams are playing again. It's a hard one. Again, having been a sports administrator and been a club administrator, I know full well that in the 2 weeks or even in the week lead up to the season start, you can get 10 kids rock up to your club and say, I want to play football this year. And you don't want to turn them away. You want them to stay and you want them to play. And therefore, you do need a process that helps accommodate that group of kids to play and enter a team in the competition. Just like I understand that sometimes people guess what their team entries are going to be, and then kids don't rock up and they need to pull a team out, but that team's already been in and fixtured. So, those things are real challenges that clubs have, and they're real challenges that we have. And we think that we can continue to work and tweak the processes just so that it optimises or reduces the chance for teams getting pulled out or late team entries, but you're probably always going to have a certain element of that. And then, as we all know, traditionally, after round 3, we then go into this regrading period, and things can sort of start all over.
Just before you go on to that part of it, just a sort of a question for you around clubs, and you mentioned kids rocking up with a few weeks left to go. We could be in a position now where AFL has now cancelled all their leagues, where we might get a mad influx of players from AFL wanting to come and play football. Football.
Yeah.
How is that going to impact? What are the implications around that? Can teams still local community teams still register teams? Because we don't want to be we're always talking about how can we get no numbers playing. This is a great opportunity for Football Victoria to really jump on the wagon, I suppose, and try and encourage these AFL players to come and play proper football now. So they might end up, staying and enjoying the game. So is there something that can be done for local clubs around that with you guys?
Oh, it's a great opportunity for us, and we're not going to turn anyone away. People might need to be just a little bit patient because you may not get the team into, the first week of competition, or it might take a couple of weeks to get you in to competition, but we're not going to turn anyone away. And we are about to, so there was a question really early in the piece that went a long time ago that said, are we going to have a marketing campaign, and what are we going to do now that football's been announced? We are going to go out with some strong communications about re-engaging. We are down on our numbers from last year, which would be expected. A lot of that is in the sort of mini-roos and the younger kids space, which probably is understandable, as parents have sort of been not too sure whether the kids should come back out and play and how that should work. So we'll definitely be working with those that haven't returned this year to see if we can get them back, and those that are playing footy that want to play sport, to want to play our football, of course, we can. Everyone out there will know that it's a bit easy to do it in the under 11s and below space because you don't have results and ladders. So you can throw those teams in a lot easier. It's a little bit more difficult to engineer at the 12s and above space for ladder reasons, but it's not impossible. And for example, if you just got 10 in an age level where you just create a new, or even 6, you just create a new league structure and get on with playing them together on an abbreviated season. So yeah, we certainly do whatever we can.
I guess though the whole aim is to try and get people to play in some way, shape, form, or another. And if there is a massive influx, as Craig says, although with the footy, they are going to have the juniors going ahead. So who knows if you'll get a lot of senior players. But look, if they come along and they get the carrots dangled for them to play some sort of competitive sport, they like it and they decide to stay on. I guess that's the whole purpose of us then trying to get them into summer competitions, whether it's the modified versions, the futsal, whether it's the, I don't know, summer sevens or whatever they call it. But that's the importance of why we need to have football in some way, shape, or another.
Yeah, I agree, Tomchi. I agree.
Craig, you're going to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, just a plan around. I suppose going back to the NPL juniors, I suppose. Will, is the plan for the NPL juniors to increase their number of teams into next year as well as planned? Are the likes of Western United going to be putting in or teams within the NPL structure for next year? And if so, what do you think that looks like? Does it?
So when we finished our competition review, we were ahead of the curve even for Western United. We announced to the football community that if Victoria was awarded a third HAL licence, then they would be entitled and eligible to enter an NPL program at both junior and senior level should they choose to. And so we accommodated for that and planned for that, just like City and Victory have in the NPL boys and men's tier of football right now. We're currently working with Western United on that. I think it's, I think they're very keen. I think that, I can see it happening. I think that'll be good news for the West. And just like, but there's an ecosystem there, I think, where HAL clubs and NPL clubs need to work together on the flow of players between them and the opportunities that players get. And as we spoke about a little bit earlier, there'll be times when it's right for a player to be in one of those programs, and then there'll be times when an NPL program is more appropriate for them. And for the betterment of Australian football, the closer that those clubs and programs can work together to develop as many players as we can develop, then that's just got to be a better outcome.
Yeah, and we had Chris Palavanis on the show 2 weeks ago, and he's very sure that the NPL they'll get an NPL set up right, but he wants to make sure that he does it right, and they involve the clubs locally, the community clubs locally in the process, which I think is a great response to making sure that they're not seen just to be taking the best kids, but they're working with the clubs to try and help promote those young kids as well. And I think that's probably a real good stance to take going forward.
I guess. Sorry.
That's right, Toncho. I agree, and Chris has been working with us really well.
Now, I was going to say, when we're talking about a lot of the stuff that may happen in the future, and I guess the whole COVID crisis has, in essence, forced us to think outside the box and take a step back and just look at the whole situation. As a result of this, are there any positive fallouts that you can see that we can expect in the coming years as far as football in Victoria? I guess what I'm trying to say strategically, what's the direction that football will be taking according to Football Victoria?
Yeah, look, I think everyone can learn out of this. I think number one is, in a crisis, stick to your principles, be bold, lead, listen, communicate. I think the crisis has demonstrated, as I said really early in the piece, just how important community sport is to Victoria, but Victorian football clubs more importantly. There isn't a sport that demonstrates Australia's multicultural face quite like ours, and the impact that we can have on the rebuild that has to happen after this pandemic is going to be significant. And I think football in Victoria needs to unite and understand that when we work together, we're so much stronger than any other code can ever be. We bring so many elements to the table that other sports just can't bring if we get them right, if we unite, if we agree on them we sort of go forward on those things together. And I think the other thing will be in the facility space. There's been an incredible amount of work done right across all clubs on facilities. We've got a government facilities team. Many of you will know Sebastian Hastie. He's a well-known sports journalist, football figure in Victoria, and he's leading that under Matt Green's team. We've got federal funding approved for a home of the Matildas down here. And, I think the Victorian state government has said that infrastructure and facilities will be part of their plan to rebuild Victoria. So it'll be really great to place our clubs in a strong space to take advantage of facility development, which can only increase the capacity. Our clubs are already stretched with pitches, grounds, change rooms and lights to play the game, and that's going to be important for us to grow going forward.
Now we've got a couple of questions or a couple of punters. Maxi Santich, he's a regular on this show. He says he's got an interesting question. Are there any changes with the NPL transfer system now? And then Mile Bulic, who's another one that asks something very similar. Good question here. What will happen with the mid-season transfers with NPL, NPL2, and the NPL3 seniors? Good question, that. Will?
Yeah, they're good questions. They're the questions we're still working through in relation to the restart. So clubs don't even know that yet. So Maxi, you'll know as soon as the clubs know. It should be out shortly. We're hopeful that'll be out. If it's not out over the weekend, it'll be early next week. But yeah, it does raise, complex questions as a sports administrator around the usual windows that we would have set related to a 26-game season at NPL 1 and 22-game seasons at NPL 2, a 20-game season at NPL 3. So we've just had to give some careful thought about how that'll work moving forward.
Awesome. We've got a few more questions. We're really, really running out of time. So thank you to absolutely everyone that has come through with questions. It's been phenomenal. We've been going now for an hour and 40 minutes, and just with you, Will, it's been about an hour and a half. So we really, really sincerely thank you very much. I guess one last question, one question that has been on that a lot of people are interested in. What is Football Victoria's official position on private academies partnering themselves with clubs? We see that a lot happening up in New South Wales and some of the other states, and it's become quite widespread down here in Victoria. There's pros and cons, I guess, to everything, but what's Football Victoria's stance on that at the moment?
Yeah, so at the NPL level, provided the academy is declared and approved, then that can take place. But it's subject to a range of things. And usually what it is subject to is the local government providing permission to access a public facility for that use. Clubs receive access to public facilities for community sport, and it tends to be at non-commercial rates. There are community rates to have access to those facilities as a local sporting club. So councils need to make sure, and councils need to approve those relationships just as much as anybody else would have to approve them. Now, of course, there can be private facilities, schools and other landowners or facility owners that can approve access to those things as well. But in the main, provided it is declared and approved, in the main it's okay. It is a complex one, and from a strategic point of view, it was, or I probably should say it is one of the things we'd like to do some further analysis on, but this COVID pandemic has probably set us back some time, and it has probably gone down the priority list a bit. We'd just like to get football started and get back before we go down that path. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the work Football New South Wales did. They did a full piece of work analysing and not investigating, but just working through what the academy structure looks like in New South Wales. And it was quite interesting. Some of the best coaches in the state are housed in academies. And to take a completely sort of polarizing view that you're either in or you're out actually means that you may be not giving access to some of the best coaches in the States to some of your kids, right?
Mm.
So it's a little bit more nuanced than just saying you're either a private academy or you're a club. There's probably a piece of work that needs to get done to work out the optimum way to get our best coaches working with as many of our kids as possible. And if a way can be found in a transparent way at reasonable fees, with local government comfortable with that, then I think everyone would agree that getting more qualified and better coaches to more of our kids more often isn't such a bad outcome.
Mm.
So we would be remiss to not consider that. Chris and I had a chat earlier about, what a model for Victoria looks like, for Australia looks like from a purely football philosophy point of view. We've tried Holland, and people give us all sorts of, the Belgium curriculum's been thrown around, Japan's been thrown around, but the only curriculum that's going to work in Australia is an Australian-specific curriculum. We're unique to any country in the world, and it has to work for us. It just has to. And that includes a combination of schools, football clubs, there'll be academies, anybody that is part of a developmental journey and engagement journey for our kids to play the game would have to be part of that football ecosystem.
I guess it just illustrates just how big the sport is becoming in this country, and it is becoming a business. It's no longer just a recreational activity, and it is becoming a big business, rightly or wrongly. That's what's happening, and it's good to see that people are making a living out of the sport. Mate, thank you very much for joining us. Craig, have you got any questions? Like I said, we've really gone well over time. We've almost done 2 episodes back to back, but once again, thank you very much, Will, for joining us. I think you're starting to like this gig.
No, it's been enjoyable. I'm very pleased, and look, well done for the work you guys do as well. It's an important role to communicate. And it's not just the West, by the way. I think everyone tunes in to listen. So,
I think so. Just judging by the comments and what you're not, absolutely.
No, really. Listen, from my side, really appreciate your open and your honesty tonight. I think the public have been crying out for some kind of clarity on a lot of stuff, and I know, as we've said, it's been very difficult because you can't make decisions until you know what decisions can be made from above. So, really appreciate you coming on and giving us a bit of an insight, and we'll run through a couple of things that you've said now before we switch off. But really glad to have you on. Very best of luck for the next couple of weeks, and I suppose from all the football fraternity, mate, just thank all your team very much for the great work they've done over the last couple of weeks, and I'm glad to see football's back up and running in the not too near future, mate. So well done to you and your team.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Thanks, Donchi. Really appreciate it, and to everyone out there, hang in there, stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you back on football fields in a safe way as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Cannot wait. Thank you once again, Will.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
That was Will Hastie, Executive Manager of Football Operations at Football Victoria. Look, hats off to the guy. Not only did he agree to come on and face the firing squad, but he he hung around for like I said, almost 2 hours. A lot of issues. And look, Craig, let's be honest. I reckon that man's got the hardest job in Victorian football, because the football operations is such a big area. And we've seen with some of the comments, and thank you to every single person that has contributed tonight. As you can see, it's such a diverse community out there. And look, ultimately, we know not everyone is going to be satisfied. Everyone's going to be catered for. But all in all, it was quite a thought-provoking and insightful episode tonight.
Yeah, it was, and there's some things just to clarify on some of the things. From an NPL juniors point of view, that season will start in a week's time. The 10 spectator group rule. You can have as many 10 groups as you want around the ground, providing they're within that 1.5 meter space. In terms of the senior football, decision will be and information will be out next week into what the fixtures look like and what the structure. So not long for those guys now that are waiting for information. By the middle of next week, all state league football, all MPL football, all MPL juniors, women's, Metros, Doherty Cup, we should all know where we stand and how it's all goes. So give Football Federation their due. They've had a tough job. Great that Will's come on and opened up a little bit to us today. And football's back.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, what we're going to do is we're going to quickly show. There we go. There's the dates. So these are the planned dates. If you missed it out, we did have this right at the top of the show. The NPL Junior Boys on the weekend of the 4th and the 5th of July with a double header. The girls start a week later on the 11th and 12th July, along with the Community Club Juniors and the Mini Roos. So all the juniors will kick off by the 11th and 12th of July. The State League Seniors, the Metropolitan Masters, VPLW, the Geelong Region Local League, and including the NPL Seniors. That will be the week of the 25th and 26th of July. I guess to be confirmed, there may be situations where the rounds may be pushed back a week, or maybe there may be buys. We don't know. And look, stay. What's the word? Stay abreast of all of the information that's happening by going to the Football Victoria website, and they've got a right on the actual front page, I think that is, they've got a return to football. What do I call it? Like a portal. Yep. So all the information is there.
And that's updated daily, as Will said earlier on. So
yeah. Now a lot happening. Look, guys, my apologies if we didn't get through all of your questions, but tune in on Sunday night, 7 p.m. for what is going to be, no doubt, a very, very interesting football fan zone episode. There you have it on the screen. You can tune into 3 of our weekly podcasts. So Sunday night, the football fan zone, ring in or text in, and then we'll get back to you. But call us, be an active part of the show. We'll know by Sunday if the situation socially, as far as the coronavirus, has got worse here in Victoria or if it's stabilised. We'll know if Australia will be hosting the 2023 World Cup. We will be a lot closer to knowing a lot of things. So do tune in. Give us your opinion. Monday night, the Geelong Region Soccer Show at 7 p.m. We've got a major guest, an international guest from the Croatian First Division, currently the second-place team, Lokomotiva Zagreb. The general manager is a Geelong-born and bred person. A lot of people from across the western suburbs will know of him. Dennis Gudasic will be joining us, as well as a coach who is now setting up shop in Geelong, who has been coaching in Dubai for the past 18 years and once upon a time was on the books of Leeds United and Middlesbrough, the academies down there. And then next week, Craig, a big show, because we've got a very, very interesting topic, very relevant topic. Shall we talk about who we're going to have next week? Very important guest.
Yeah, I think we will. It's this guy. I was lucky or fortunate enough to take my under-16s to a presentation from a young guy by the name of Jack Edwards, who's an Geelong Cats AFL player. I believe his father was quite a well-known AFL player in his day, who battled with mental illness from a very early age, pressures of playing football, pressures of getting contracts, pressures of being playing at 100% all the time. And I was lucky enough to take the under-16s to listen to him talk, and it's a real insight into what's going on in the mind of a person that's going through problems, mental illness. And we know through the whole issue of COVID that many people have fought this battle. And we know for a fact that in Geelong over the last 3 months or 4 months, I think there's 5 young boys under the age of 15 have all taken their lives. So it's a really important topic. I've been waiting to get this up and running for probably 2 months now, and because of everything that's been going on, we've been waiting. But we're pleased to have Jake Edwards on the show next week, and please listen into him. It's a really thought-provoking and a really moving story that he has. for everybody to listen into, and it'll certainly get the tears in the back of your eyes coming out for sure. So listen in.
Absolutely. So that's football out west next week, next Thursday night at 7 p.m. Go the Matildas, go Australia, go the Australia-New Zealand bid for the Women's World Cup. We'll all find out 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. We also may find out by the end of about 7 a.m. tomorrow morning if Liverpool are the champions of the EPL. On that note, thank you very much to everyone once again who has been a part of tonight's show. It's been probably an extraordinary show for many reasons, but having Will on to explain a lot of the things that is happening behind the scenes. Hopefully we've done our bit to try and facilitate that, and we really once again thank him very, very much. It's been a huge show tonight. Thank you once again to everyone and to our sponsors, George Cross Football Club, Georgie's on Vista. When this is all goes back to normality, we cannot wait to have a live show from Georgie's on Vista. And if you do happen to pop over to Georgie's on Vista, buy us a drink. Even if we're not there, you can drink it for us. But buy us a drink from the bar and drink it for us, and say hi to Mark, Sultana, and the gang over there. Craig, we look forward to Sunday.
That's got games this weekend and is back to training. Enjoy your weekend of football. Football's back. Enjoy it. Take it for what it is. We're very lucky to be able to play any kind of football this season. So enjoy the situation. Enjoy the time that you get out there on the field, and look forward to seeing you all again this time next week. And
on one last note, good luck to you, mate, on your COVID tests. I'm sure it's just going to be nothing. You know, the second wave is just it's so weak. And they actually say, and they actually are saying that the second wave, if it does come, it's actually going to be quite weak. You know, and that's what they're saying. You know, but anyway, we'll leave it up to the experts. Good night.
Everybody that has is infected and has got it, you know, hope everybody has a quick recovery and we can get back to some kind of normality. But look forward to a great weekend. I'll be playing coaching football this weekend, hopefully, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next Thursday at 7 p.m.
Good on you. Good night.
Georgie's on Vista is the local bistro at Fraser Rise in Caroline Springs, situated at the George Cross Soccer Club at City Vista Reserve. With the current COVID-19 pandemic, we've adjusted our menu and our business times. Bistro dining is back with 2 dining sessions Monday to Saturday between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Numbers are limited, so bookings are essential on 7021 0555. Head to georgiesonvista.com.au to check out the menu and the dining times. We're also doing takeaway 5 nights a week, Monday to Friday. You can order your meal, kids' meals, or your favourite snack meals via email. info@georgiesonvista.com.au or phone your order through